So does that justify everything that you do?
Excuse me, let me tell you something. What do you think they were doing it for? Because they were trying to save us from poverty? No, they did it because they needed us. It's honor and family and loyalty. And some of us wanted a piece of the action. No, we weren't educated like the Americans.
So does that justify everything that you do?
Excuse me, let me tell you something. What do you think they were doing it for? Because they were trying to save us from poverty? No, they did it because they needed us. It's honor and family and loyalty. And some of us wanted a piece of the action. No, we weren't educated like the Americans, but we had the balls to take what we wanted.
Welcome. We're here to talk about the XFL today. We're going to If you're watching this a little late, thank you for tuning in. I'm about to bring in a very special guest here. How we doing, buddy?
Good. How's it going out there, XFL fans? My name is Jamie Malloy, and I'm a writer for Gridiron Heroics. And today I'm going to be talking about some of the games from Week 3 of the XFL on this podcast with the host Evan here, talking sports by the lake, and I can't wait to get started. So let's actually get started here.
So, again, thank you for coming on. Right before we start, I'd like to ask you how you got into the sports world. So, what do you do?
Oh, it's a really interesting story. I'm glad you're bringing this up, Evan. So I got into sports at the very, very young age of 7 years old. I tried to do a lot of things when I was younger, and it was really hard for me to do a lot of to get me to really do anything. So I got my first ever sports game was Madden 2004 for the PC, and I started playing it. And ever since I started playing it, I just started talking about sports knowledge, talking about scores and stats and everything. And then it continued throughout my life and everything. And then it got into the high school where the lacrosse coach wanted me to write for the Webster Herald, which was a local paper in the town of Webster, New York. And I did that. So then I wrote for the basketball team after that. And then when I got into college at MCC, I wrote for the college sports, for the sports information director and everything. And then I wrote for the Cardinal Courier, which was a magazine at Fisher. And now I'm writing for digital media.
Well, nice. So we're going to
Heroics.
Absolutely. So that's actually very interesting, and that's pretty cool. I actually got started in sports at an early age myself. I started playing pee-wee ball at 8 years old, and then from there on out, I've loved sports ever since. So we're going to start with our Saturday game, which was at 7:00 on ESPN. We're going to talk about the Seattle Sea Dragons and the Vegas Vipers. So what were your thoughts on the game?
This game was wild. It was a battle of 0-2 teams, but it was a very exciting game for a team of 2 losses, especially for Seattle. They were led by quarterback Ben DiNucci, who you guys may know, who was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys in the 7th round of the 2020 NFL draft. He absolutely lit it up through the air. He had 377 yards passing, which actually led the XFL with 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. He even threw the game-winning touchdown on a 65-yard strike to wide receiver Josh Gordon, who many people may know, who was also in the NFL. And they were able to pick up their first win over the Vegas Vipers, 30-26, after they lost their first two games close, and their week 2 loss was 20-18 on a field goal to AJ McCarron, who is in the background right here with the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Absolutely. So from this game, what did you think of Ben DiNucci's performance?
Oh, he's been tearing it up the first 3 weeks of the season. Some of the plays I noticed, he's actually looking like Josh Allen out there with the way he's been scrambling. It makes you wonder, why wasn't he doing this with the Cowboys? And his first start with the Cowboys was on Sunday Night Football. But back to the XFL, he's looked really he's looked like a whole different quarterback. And there's a reason why his nickname out there, and everybody's calling him Gucci DiNucci.
Love the nickname. I actually wondered the same thing, but I'm starting to realize with guys, when you go into an opportunity and you're not the starter, you're a late round pick, most times coaches really don't give you the opportunity to play at a level that you're comfortable with. They kind of want you to come in and right the ship, just control the offense. But as far as he looked to me, I absolutely agree. He looked very well comfortable. It was comparable to the quarterback that just got hurt for the 40. The one thing I could say about all the games this weekend was that these offenses are starting to come together, as versus the first 2 weeks where it was primarily the defenses were taking over. It felt like a lot of the offenses, because they didn't have a preseason, were kind of struggling to figure it all out. And you saw the ones who had a little bit more elite talent, or guys who had played in the XFL or USFL together in previous time, those teams really took off early. What did you think of Brett Hundley and the Vegas Vipers?
I think Vegas is one of those teams that they're still in preseason mode. I feel like they're still trying to figure out who their starting quarterback is really going to be. I mean, they're 0-2, but they've got some good pieces. I mean, they got Martavis Bryant, who's also on this background here, who was a former Pittsburgh Steeler and had a good 4 years with them, and had 1 year where he was suspended because of substance abuse policies, violating that and stuff. But he's a talented guy. And they even had a guy named Luis Perez, who was a D2 national champion. So I think they need to figure out if they can figure out who their starting quarterback is, whether it's Perez or Hundley, and find a way to give Martavis Bryant the ball more. I think they can turn their season around even at 0-3. They can get better as a team and improve.
Absolutely. And that was something that I've noticed about the Vipers. I like what they do. Their defense keeps them in games. They have a guy, Vic Beasley. A lot of people may remember the name, being a first-round talent for the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of these guys are a lot of talent. They've had trouble in the past, as you mentioned before. I really like what I've seen from Lewis and from Brett, but I think the thing that's going to make the difference for them is when they finally just pick a quarterback and say, hey, you know what? The job's not yours yet. Another game that we're going to talk about, we saw. I actually have another guest that's going to come in a second, but I'm going to finish this thought that I'm kind of forecasting here, talking about the Orlando Guardians, where they allowed Paxton Lynch to play the entire game. And we saw the fruits of that labor by letting him play and the changes that they made in the offensive line. But before we transition to our next game that we're going to talk about, I'm going to bring in another XFL fan and a member of Driving to the Top Productions. How we doing, my man?
What's going on, man?
This is my good guy, Marcus. Marcus, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Nice to meet you, Marcus.
What's up, Jamie? I'm part of World Elite Podcast with Dylan and Jordan. You can find us on Twitter at World Elite Pod. We're the pod of your weekly unfiltered wrestling and entertainment. You can find me on Twitter at MarcusElite337. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to talk an exciting week 3 of the XFL. Where'd you guys start off?
Wow, we
just recapped the Sea Dragons. Go ahead, Jamie.
Well, yeah, we like Evan said, we just started talking off week 3, the Seattle Sea Dragons beating the Vegas Vipers in a battle of 0-2 teams, but it was a really exciting game between 0-2 teams. And these 2 0-2 teams are talented teams that are still trying to figure out what they're made out of, especially Seattle, who's 0-2, but they've got Ben DiNucci at quarterback, Gucci DiNucci, and Josh Gordon at wide receiver, and the first 2 games they lost were tight games against arguably 2 of the better teams in the league in DC and St. Louis.
Yeah, the DiNucci Gordon connection was once again on display, and that pair connected for 2 scores, including a last-minute touchdown that sealed the win. So that was a great pairing right there for Seattle.
Yeah, I absolutely liked it. I didn't expect him to go for a deep ball on 4th and 2 and throw it for 62 yards and Josh Gordon make a play. But, yeah, absolutely. It was a great game. But the game I am most excited to talk about is what we're going to jump into next, is the Battlehawks versus the Defenders, a battle of 2 teams at the top of their respective divisions, both 2-0. Jamie, I'll let you go first. Excuse me. I'll let you go first on your thoughts of the game.
Oh, no problem, Evan. Man, if there was an XFL game of the week, like Fox has America's game of the week for the NFL, this would have been America's game of the week for the XFL. Definitely a battle of 2 2-0 teams who really have shown why they're 2-0. St. Louis has done it with comebacks and AJ McCarron looking like Tom Brady in the 4th quarter with his clutch genes, and DC doing it with their running quarterbacks and their defense led by Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator, who is always interesting to watch mic'd up. I'm a Bills guy. I remember Greg Williams a little bit. Interesting personality with him, to say the least.
Absolutely.
Anyway, what I want to talk about is Chris Blair had the longest play of the season of that game. He had a 56-yard catch from quarterback Jordan Talamalu, who Ole Miss fans may remember took over as the starting quarterback for Shea Patterson after Shea Patterson left. And Jordan Talamalu was a transfer from New Mexico State military to Ole Miss, and he had a good season at Ole Miss. And actually, his stats were as good as Tua Tagovailoa's at Alabama that year, if you can believe that. But yeah, so that game was interesting. Deshard, right, he had the 72-yard kick return, which was the longest kick return of the year. And this ending was crazy. So it was 34-20 with about a minute left. DC picks the ball off at the 1-yard line. So I'm thinking, okay, the game's over. Well, Talamalu fumbles the ball at the 1-yard line, and St. Louis gets a touchdown to make it 34-28. So they have to go for the 4th and 15, and they don't get it. So then what happens is DC takes a knee at the end of the game, but St. Louis jumps off sides and gets a penalty, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty at the end for the offside, and DC pulls off the shocker and wins the battle of the undefeated 34-28 and improves to 3-0 on the year. and is one of two teams that are 3-0. And St. Louis loses a very tough game and falls to 2-1. But the good news is they're going to have their first home game and are expected to get up to 30,000 people and filling up that dome next week. If you watched AJ McCarron's press conference, he wants that dome filled up for their home opener.
Can we talk about that brawl with Francis Bernard and Brian Hill? Holy crap. Even Rod Taylor, you could throw him in there. He was ejected too. All because they acted like sore losers.
That's the thing about the XFL, though. You can get away with a lot of things that in the NFL would be an automatic fine or an ejection or a suspension for.
Well, that was, I'll tell you my favorite part of the whole weekend when he gets back. The return of the beer snake in DC.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought up the beer snake. For those who don't know what the beer snake is, it's this cultural phenomenon in DC. And what they do is they take a bunch of empty beer cups and they stack it up on top of each other, and they try to fill it up to see how tall it is, and they form it in the line of a snake, so it basically fills it up with beer, and it can get up to like 15,000 feet tall at the top of the stadium. And the Seattle and the DC fans booed because the XFL originally took it away, so they retaliated by throwing lemons on the field. Well, the good news is it came back week 3 because the XFL is a cool league, and they're not like the NFL, which they'll allow it in the XFL because it's a fun league. The NFL, we call it the no fun league.
I'm glad they brought it back, and they even brought it back. They decided to do a second one on the opposite side of the end zone, but it didn't get as long as the other one did. I told that to Dill. I'm like, I should have named y'all team the DC Beer Snakes, not the Defenders.
Hey, put that on Twitter. Hashtag name of DC Beer Snake. Change.org, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we lost them. Come on,
Thoughts on the fight.
There you go. He's back.
I don't know what's going on with StreamYard because anyway, whatever it is what it is. The fight that happened at the end of the game, the chippiness that happened, I want to see them play again in 2 weeks. But I want to ask Marcus this question. Did you notice the chippiness in the following 2 games? It seemed like this week chippiness was the agenda of hard-hitting football, pushing and shoving, helmet grabbing after each play. It was pretty aggressive all week for this week in the XFL.
I think they were waiting for each other. I mean, it was one of them. It was only the second battle of the unbeatens. I tell you what, it didn't look like that with Houston and Arlington last week when they were battling for unbeaten. I think we got ourselves a new rivalry in the XFL, DC versus St. Louis. And, oh, man, when they play again in 2 weeks, I will tune in for that one, especially if they paint the dome blue like they say they are. I miss the blue helmets. I saw they got silver helmets now with the wings, but I miss the blue ones.
Absolutely. So you brought up a great point that I want to talk about before we transition to the third game of the week or the second game on Sunday. Do you think that it'll do the XFL well that they actually have a rivalry that's picking up early in the year with 2 of their best teams?
Oh, yeah, because you'd think they would have formed one in Texas, and it don't look like it with Houston or San Antonio yet, or even Houston and Arlington yet. They're just playing like kids in the backyard. You want to see – I love to see a little fierce competition every once in a while, and you're going to get that with the Battlehawks and the Defenders. Just think they can maybe meet a third time if they make the playoffs. If they're the top 2 teams in the North, they could end up playing each other one more time. A third time's a charm.
Absolutely. I would love to see that. What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, I do, but I think another rivalry could occur in the championship game. I'd like to see DC go up against Houston. I think that would be a great championship game. 3-0 teams. It's too bad they're in the opposite divisions because I think DC could give Houston a run for their money.
Absolutely. You know what? I haven't thought about that, and that's a great point. We're going to transition to, like I mentioned before, we're going to transition to the second game of the weekend, which was the Guardians versus the Renegades. This was a close game. Not as high scoring as we got for the DC Defenders and the St. Louis Battlehawks. But I was kind of surprised what we saw out of the Guardians on Sunday afternoon. What do you think, Marcus?
Yeah, that game was actually it was a defensive battle. If you're talking about the Renegades and the Guardians, it was a defensive battle where Paxton Lynch touchdown run broke what was like a 3-3 defensive battle, and it looked to be the difference maker. But despite only totaling 178 yards on offense, the Renegades was able to rally for the win on a Kyle Slaughter 15-yard touchdown pass to Tyler Vaughns late in the fourth quarter, which I'm going to give my takes for Paxton Lynch. I mean, he's a very underrated performer, but you got to give him his credit.
Absolutely agree with that. What about you, Jamie?
Yeah, and speaking of Kyle Slaughter, Marcus, I'm glad you brought him up. Did any of you guys out there in the audience get a chance to see him? It was his first start in the XFL for Arlington. I think he did pretty well. And you mentioned he threw that game-winning touchdown pass in the fourth quarter. But this is his total stats. He was 18 of 23 for 124 yards, and he had that one touchdown pass late. I think he threw some good zip on the ball. He was accurate, and I think he just managed the offense in a low-scoring game. And guess what? On my website, Gridiron Heroics, we had a chance to bring him on a Zoom call to interview him, and he was very friendly. He was a great guy, awesome guy, and he was outgoing, and he told us many interesting stories about his time in the NFL and his time with the New Orleans Breakers in the USFL last year and his time so far with the Arlington Renegades.
That's actually pretty interesting. We'll have to talk about that one a little later. This was definitely a defensive battle, and I thought this was going to be a blowout for the Renegades. Just with all the issues that the Guardians had been having with the offensive line, the going back and forth between Lynch and Francois. I'm like I foreshadowed earlier, I'm happy with the idea of making some changes at the offensive line and sticking to one quarterback. Even if you don't believe the guy is going to be your starter, even though I personally think he should, it seemed to settle the offense down no matter what was going on in the game. They knew that they had their guy, they had their function. Unfortunately, they couldn't score more than 9 points. But the way they moved the ball, the way that they fought, it kept them in the game, and it allowed their defense to I think it actually allowed their defense to get a little bit of rest and their defense to not be so tired. But speaking of defenses, I wanted to transition to the Renegades before I pass it around the circle again. I have never seen so many turnovers forced by a team in 3 weeks. They had 12 sacks and ended up with 7 turnovers or 7 takeaways before the game started. And as soon as they said that, they rattled off I think it was 3. It was an interception and 2 fumbles. But, Jamie, I'll pass it off to you.
Well, I definitely think if Coach Stoops was coaching the Miami Hurricanes, he definitely had that turnover chain going. I mean, but if you guys remember the turnover chain with Miami just a few years ago, that was popular. They put him around the guy, whoever got the interception, they would put it around their neck to symbolize getting a turnover. But, yeah, I mean, when you said both teams about defense, but, yeah, Coach Stoops, when he was at Oklahoma, he was a defensive guy, and Terrell Buckley was a defensive guy too for Orlando, being a defensive back and winning a Super Bowl with the Patriots, playing for Coach Belichick and everything. So he knows about defense. But like I said, Stoops is a defensive guy too. He built those defenses at Oklahoma when they were the top program in the country, and he's doing the same thing in Arlington.
Absolutely. What about you, Mark?
I got a question for you guys. If we had a skit, or not, I wouldn't say a skit. If we'd have a little scene here where if we can decide a player of the week for the XF, Gordon with racking up 300.
You were saying for a player of the week, kind of jumped out there. Can you repeat that question?
I said if we ever did player of the week for the XFL, who would be player of the week 3? Josh Gordon with his 65-yard touchdown, or Brandon Silver's racking up 378 passing yards?
Well, let's make that inaugural because I think that's a great idea. We can start doing player of the week. But my guess or my choice would have to be Josh Gordon. Just because of the way he's been taking over the game, it seems like he's got that big receiver talent back. And I think for him, it was just a little bit more dramatic. And I would have to go with that as the game-winning catch.
Okay.
What about you, Jamie?
I'm in agreement because Josh Gordon's was more anticlimactic and suspenseful because it was with an 0-2 team that's been competitive. And like Brandon Silvers, no disrespect, what he's doing is great, but he's expected to do that every week on a 3-0 Houston team that's got probably the best defense with Wade Phillips. So he's expected to do that. But Josh Gordon was amazing because he's trying to redeem himself and get his NFL mojo back for a guy that is 6'3", 230 pounds and is unbelievable receiver talent for his size. Is amazing that he made that catch.
Yeah, I saw the highlight of that. I was like, wow, nice. And plus, when I talked about the Sea Dragons helmets, I like the orange helmets now. Like I always said, their white ones were pretty sick. I like the orange with the green.
Yeah, I think it had to grow on you. I was in the same boat, but I think those orange helmets kind of grew on us. But who would your pick be, Marcus?
I'll have to just say, just this once, I'll say Josh Gordon. Like they have the comeback kid.
Absolutely. Did you have any thoughts on the game?
On which one?
The Renegades Guardians game. Any other thoughts before we transition?
Well, I didn't get to watch much of it because I had to watch it on ESPN Plus, and just like your internet, my internet was tripping yesterday, and it kept freezing on me, and I couldn't really enjoy that one. I was lucky enough to watch the entire Battlehawks Defenders game on ESPN Plus while my internet was cooperating, but when this one, I barely got to watch some of it, and I just turned it off. I just got tired of it freezing, and I was just keeping up with it on my phone, and it stayed like 9-3 for a while, and then they finally scored towards the end, and it was 10-9. So pretty sure it was
Absolutely.
a defensive battle, but it looked like it was a hell of a game. All the games this week were actually pretty decent.
Yeah, they were. So we have a comment in the chat. Thank you to Cage My IQ.
Oh, that's my boy.
For the Beer Snake comment.
That's Bakley. He's part of our wrestling group. You can check out his podcast, Cage My Q, especially if you're a big UFC fan. Go check out Cage My Q. And he's a South Jersey, Philadelphia native. He loves the Philadelphia Eagles. He loves all Philly teams.
All right. Well, we'll definitely have to get that conversation going another day. But we're going to transition to the last game. This was a game where my ESPN Plus started to go crazy, and this was the game that before everything started, I really wanted to see. I'm becoming a fan of the Houston Roughnecks solely off of Borghi.
Yes, Borghi is awesome.
He is awesome. I remember him coming into the draft, and everybody was like, if this kid had a little bit more size on him, he'd be a first-round pick.
Man, I thought, he had an amazing career at Wazoo, and I'm thinking, why didn't he get drafted?
Right. It was all about size.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't he like 5'5" or 5'6"? That's why he didn't have a chance. I'm probably taller than him.
Yeah, I think that they felt like he was too small. Huh?
I think I'm taller than him because I'm like 5'9".
You might be. You just might be. But
oh, we lost him again. Come back. Where are you from?
Webster, New York.
Webster, New York.
Mhm.
Are you a Jets, Giants, or a Bills fan?
Bills.
Bill, I gotta give it to Buffalo. I mean, yeah, I had Josh Allen on my fantasy team for 2 years in a row. He was my quarterback when I won fantasy football in 2021. Y'all also had some of my LSU boys. You had Tre'Davious White. Stephon Diggs was good. I mean, y'all had a killer team. It's just what's up? Why is it just one of them teams where when they get in the playoffs, they just when the spotlight hits them, that's it.
No, I just think the defense last 2 years. That's what it is.
Well, I got a reason to be smiling because we just signed Derek Carr for 4 years, so I love it. I don't know why Dylan thinks that I wasn't going to be happy about it. We got our guy. I mean, if we draft like a backup quarterback for him, like a third string, I'm okay with that. But I think that's all we mean. Yeah, I would love to have Hendon Hooker like to be under his wing and all that. But I mean, now we got what we need. We just need a quarterback to throw targets at like Michael Thompson and Jarvis Landry and all of them, and Traquan Smith. We got the quarterback now.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. What do you do with what's his name? Jameis Winston.
He can go. Hell, he could take Andy Dalton too. You can take Andy Dalton away too.
Jameis Winston was playing good at the beginning of 2021 before he got hurt. He beat Aaron Rodgers week 1.
Yeah, and he was. And he beat Tom Brady.
That was Trevor Siemian, I think.
Yeah, Trevor Siemian was crap.
He beat Tom Brady, I think.
He was crap, and Ian Book was crap. I don't know why. I'll never trust a Notre Dame quarterback ever again.
Ha!
He's cap casualty. Yeah. But wait till Alvin Kamara comes back and we got him and Carr together. That's going to be hell. That's going to be a hell of an offense.
Is going to be great.
Yeah.
But did anybody actually get a chance to watch the Roughnecks Brahmas game? Because my internet was not working. So what did you think of it?
Well, I mean, I was watching it on my phone, unfortunately, because I was watching an AEW pay-per-view last night. But luckily, it was on ESPN2, so I just pulled out the DirecTV app and watched it on my phone. But, like, if I got bored watching a match, I'd look at my phone and watch them. They had a dominant first half. It was like 22-7 in the half, and Brandon Silvers was just throwing it. And John Kirkland with them catches and whatnot. Man, 77 receiving yards for him. But I thought it was going to be a blowout, but then, San Antonio was catching up. I got a little worried at the end, but then it was like 4th and goal at the 2-yard line,